Good day. I'm going to take the Australian thing. Good day. Good day, mate. Can you give me the simplest definition of quantum physics? Which is really trippy. It's really in alignment with what we were talking about last week, right? The idea of, changing the world, right? Based on the way you look at things and, suddenly the world changes. But I think if we can shift our perspective and our ideas about the way that looks, I think we can change something, not only within ourselves, but within the world. Hello there, once again, back. I always want to say good morning, but then sometimes I'm filming these at different times of day, and sometimes you're not listening to it in morning anyways, so good day. I'm going to take the Australian thing. Good day, mate. Anyways, I started just alluded to the fact that we were going to talk a little bit about this sort of idea of law of attraction type thing. And, I kind of want to talk a little bit about that because it really is in alignment with all these things that we're talking about again, that being in concert with something, in concert with life. And if you don't know much about quantum physics or quantum mechanics, it's sort of complex. And as you start to read it, you'll even look up, can you give me the simplest definition of quantum physics? And it's, it just gets really deep and really into all kinds of other things. So, but it's very cool. Some of the things that you learn about that is that basically we're all made up of space. That, this wall, this chair, this camera, all these things that look like solid things are in fact just mostly space and energy, and they interact with one another, which is really kind of weird, but it is the truth. And they've done all these crazy experiments, but they start to discover that in fact the simple act of our observation changes the way those particles behave, which is really trippy, because that means that we're definitely it's definitely more complex than what we really see, right? So it's really in alignment with what we were talking about last week, right? That sort of idea of, changing the world, right? Based on the way you look at things and, suddenly the world changes because you can look at it through different eyes, right? We all know the law of attraction stuff. It's become really, it's almost passé in a way. It's something that everybody kind of understands, that everybody got into the whole idea of The Secret, right? And it's super interesting, because I started learning about that more than a decade, probably 15 years before that whole book was even written and the whole ideas of it, kind of came out. And I think in some ways it got a little bit twisted in the sense that people started wanting to use it for purposes of creating things, like material things, like saying, I'm going to, focus on this new car, that, I'm going to focus on this red Lamborghini, and I'm going to have this red Lamborghini in my life. And, or things like that, right? And I think, interestingly, it's sort of in a way almost bastardizes the whole thing. I don't know if is to say that, yes, you just have to focus on this, and there's examples of it, and there's examples of success, and if you've tried it at all, I'm sure that you've probably found that sometimes that kind of stuff really works, and sometimes it totally doesn't. I mean, I can sit here and think all I want about, purple feathers falling from the sky, and sometimes it's not happening. But this idea of creating our own reality is somewhat true, actually. There's deeper things of what that looks like, creating our own reality in the holographic universe. I mean, your mind gets really twisted around when you start going down those things, trust me. But let's bring it back to the simplest thing. So we've all had experiences of that. And I'm going to explain what I think a lot of it has to do with. That, do we create our own reality? So some say that yes, we look at what's going on inside, and that jointly everybody, we all agree that this is the society we're going to live in, or this is the way things are going to look, and everything in it, it manifests out of that. Could that be true? Very possibly. I don't know. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm saying that sometimes the simpler explanation is also the truth. So is it that we create our own reality, or is it that we create the perception of our reality? They've proven that the brain and the eye and all that working together, that we only see a very, very tiny percentage of actually what is happening. Our perception is twisted. They do experiments where they do, they'll have a basketball game going on and they've got these players playing basketball and going back and forth, and everybody's watching the thing, and suddenly they send a guy in a gorilla suit like flying past, and although some people will catch that gorilla going by, the guy in the gorilla suit going by, they can ask people afterwards going, okay, so what happened in the game, and they'll say, well, this happened, and, I was watching, and, this guy scored, and this guy fouled out, and da-da-da. And they're like, and what about the gorilla? And they're like, what are you talking about? What gorilla? And they've done experiments like this. So we have a twisted perception quite often of what is truly happening in the world. I cannot think of a more relevant time to that we look through the television and we see the world in a particular way, and it might not be the reality exactly, so how does it, so saying that we create our perception of reality is more the truth. We've all been through that where you buy a red car or a blue car or a white car or whatever. I buy a red Toyota, and suddenly everywhere I look are red Toyotas. It wasn't that they weren't there before. Well, maybe in the theory that some people say that yes, you actually created now. But what if it wasn't? That you just looked at it differently and suddenly now you see them. Women who want to get pregnant will suddenly see pregnant women and children everywhere. Everywhere. It wasn't like they weren't there before. They were there before, but you didn't see them. It was a shift in your perception. Your focus and the way you're looking suddenly shifted that and said, this is really interesting. Now these new things are there, right? But they were always there. So I think that it's an interesting thing, because we can also see that when we do a paradigm shift. So for example, when we look at, there's a story. If I tell you a story, and I use this, we use this in a class that we did at one point in time. So I'll tell you a story. There's you get on the bus and you're sitting down in the bus. I know you don't want to be on the bus, but maybe this time you're on the bus for a good reason. Maybe you're going to, I don't know where. You're going something fabulous, and it's taking you on a tour, and you're going to go see the, I don't know, something in France, or you're going to go see something, the Grand Canyon, and you're on this bus and you're going along, and then all of a sudden on the bus, I don't want to say the Grand Canyon because that doesn't make sense with the story, but you'll see what I mean in a minute. So You're on the bus and you're driving along, and suddenly there's a man sitting in the front, and he's got 3 children, and the kids are out of control, unruly, running up and down, and they are making noise, and they are being annoying, and this man at the front is literally sitting on the seat, and he's not moving. He's not doing anything to stop this chaos. And what do you feel like? So, when we ask that question, you feel annoyed, you feel judgment. What is wrong with this person? Why can they not get their children under control? And you want to go and just, you feel this, frustration and anger and just annoyance, right? Not everybody does, but lots of people do. But what if I told you that this man has just come from losing his wife, and unexpectedly, she has died, and he has picked up the kids, and they are on the bus going home. She was in an accident. They don't have the car anymore. And he is faced with the incredible, unforeseen moment in his life that he now no longer has his wife. Everything in his life has just changed in that moment, and he has to tell his children that they've lost his mother, and he can't even find the words. He can't even speak about it. What happens to how you feel about that situation? So a tiny shift in information changed the way you looked at things. So when we talked last week about when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. How do you change the way you look at things? It's not always easy, but what if you said these words, and I do this constantly now as much as I can. What do I not know that if I knew would change everything? What do I not know? What information am I missing? What piece of this puzzle? When I'm looking at someone and someone else has a totally different view of the world, what piece of the kaleidoscope, what piece of their experience am I not seeing through that would break that barrier down for me so that I can reflect back on myself this new world that I want to see, that I can see it differently. One of the challenges that we have is that, in the Google world that we live in, this confirmation bias thing they talk about all the time, and how, it pulls back, we go and search for something, and then it just keeps reflecting back to us, this little bubble of, what we've already looked at. And, I think sometimes we have to do that, and I think we have to pull ourselves back out of that and go, is it possible that I could learn something new that would help me understand, or at least at bare minimum, feel compassion for someone else? And I think when we do that, I think maybe that does change the world a bit, don't you think? When we can actually look at someone else that has a difference of opinion than us. I'm not saying this is easy. Trust me. I get caught up just like everybody else. I can get inundated with my own thoughts and start looking at the way somebody is behaving or somebody has done something, and literally got caught in the, they're the reason for my unhappiness. They're the reason that my circumstances, or the government has done, or the, whatever. Somebody has done something to me, and suddenly I'm this victim to this. But I think if we can shift our perspective and our ideas about the way that looks, I think we can change something, not only within ourselves, but within the world. What do you think? I'd sure be interested in if you've had experiences like that where you've been able to shift your perspective about something simply by more information or by deciding to look at it differently. I think it's worth thinking about. Have an awesome week, and we'll see you next Monday.